Jesus and Mary, now and forever. Dear brothers and sisters, on this Sunday between the Lord's ascension into heaven and the descent of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, the Mass readings remind us of two fundamental realities so that we can fully appreciate the gift of the Holy Spirit that we will celebrate next Sunday. It is about the reality that Christian life is not easy. You don't go to heaven in a carriage, said St. Philip Neri. How narrow the gate and constricted the road that leads to life, Jesus tells us in the Gospel of St. Matthew. Fidelity to God, to the Gospel, to the demands of truth and goodness, often demands sacrifices, and sometimes even heroic sacrifices. And how do we usually react to this reality? How do we usually react to these words of Jesus? We feel offended. We accuse God of cruelty. Or rather not. No. God is merciful. He cannot want this. Evidently, it is the Church that does not understand. Evidently, it is the Pope who is too demanding. It's the priests who have not understood that God is love. And this is how, with great ease, the word of Jesus Christ is put aside, to replace it with our own preferences. This is how we begin to criticize those who are simply the spreaders of the word of Christ. This is how the ground has always been prepared for the real persecutions against the Church and against those who maintain the testimony of Jesus. These critics and persecutors are always to be found even among the Christian people, and they wage their battle, convincing themselves that they do so in the name of God. But as we have just read, they will do this because they have not known either the Father or me, says Jesus. Jesus warned us so that we would not be taken by surprise and not be discouraged. We know that to be his disciples means to take up the cross and follow him along the road that he traveled. We will have to fight against our flesh that drags us down, against the demons that want to see us damned, against the world that persecuted Jesus and will therefore persecute us too. We will even face incomprehension and opposition from some of our brothers in the faith. How does one not become overwhelmed? How does one not succumb in a fight fought against such numerous and such strong enemies? Here then is the other fundamental reality that we see in today's readings. We can do everything, overcome everything, every temptation, defeat every enemy of our soul with the strength that comes from God. St. Peter, in telling us this in today's epistle, surely had in mind what he had learned from experience and what he had learned from the mouth of Jesus himself. Without me, you can do nothing. And elsewhere, speaking of how the rich can overcome all the temptations and seductions of the world, he said, "For human beings it is impossible, but not for God. All things are possible for God." Here then, brothers and sisters, how thankful we must be for the gift of the Holy Spirit. He is our strength. He is our life, our light, our life, of course. And his victory will be our victory. Of course, on our part, we must strive to always have the Holy Spirit dwelling and working in us, avoiding sin, or if we fall, immediately recovering God's grace with a good confession. We must pray him, we must invoke him, and he will certainly come, for it is he himself who in the first letter of St. Peter tells us, "Whoever serves, let it be with the strength that God supplies, so that in all things God may be glorified through Jesus Christ." God's strength comes to us through His grace, and we find God's grace in the sacraments, especially confession and communion, which we may also receive daily if we wish. In prayer, participation in Holy Mass and praying the Holy Rosary are particularly rich in grace. In sacraments, in prayer, in our life of union with Jesus and Mary. Jesus, because it is He who with the Father sends the Holy Spirit to us. Mary, because where the Holy Spirit sees His bride, He rushes upon that soul with power and abundance. How beautiful it is to spend the days in union with Jesus and Mary. How sweet is their company. How much light, how much strength, how much serenity it brings in the joys and difficulties of this life. But it's not enough to listen to homilies. It's not enough to read good books. The only way to believe and understand that it is really so is to experience it. Dear brothers and sisters, if you never did it, give it a try. See for yourselves. Put yourselves in the presence of Jesus and Mary, thinking of them or imagining them before you or beside you or within you. Talk to them. Look at them. Speak to them of everything you feel in your heart, everything you do, all the decisions you have to make, all the commitments you have to face. You will see for yourself how beautiful it is, how all of life takes on another light, a new energy. Do this, and you will experience how the Holy Spirit works in the souls of those who love God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.